You don't need to be chasing somebody else's dream. Just make your own. I tell you now, Anthony, if I had to go work for somebody else in an office, I would die. I would absolutely die. I couldn't breathe. I wouldn't be able to breathe.
How did you decide on which direction to take?
If you did not have a fear of failure, you would literally be unstoppable. Just take a step forward and work. That's all you need to do.
Here with Mike Floyd. Mike has been a longtime friend of mine. We met probably a little over 8 years ago. He's got a great story, and he has seen some great success with some of the things that we teach here. And so we're really honored to have him here. And thanks a lot for coming, Mike.
I appreciate it. I cannot believe it's been 8 years. It seems. Yeah. I remember the parking lot that I was in going to a football game with my niece when she was in high school. The first time you and I talked, and wow. I remember sitting in the truck and like, hey, this guy's really cool. And so I remember that. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and we've both come a long way since then, right?
Yeah.
That's really what we're going to get into today. Let's start from the beginning for you. You want to give a brief overview from your side of how we met and how?
So we met. If I remember correctly, we were both in Dane's the foundation group, and at some point during that process, they were partnering people together, and so we ended up in kind of the same cohort. And I don't remember if it was 4 or 5 of us that were together. I remember Ben and
Yep.
Nate and all those guys and Caleb and whatnot. As luck would have it, right? You join, everybody's on a different journey, right? And so in our group, Caleb was already super successful, had multiple businesses and was trying to like level things up. And at the time I had just left, I think corporate America, and was kind of struggling, trying to figure out my lane of what exactly I was going to take my skill set and how I was going to do something with that. But all of us were in this group utilizing kind of the mechanics of the foundation to springboard, ideation and go through these steps, which that work was tremendous. I was the first kind of like the mechanized version of taking something from idea to creation for me. And so I met a bunch of wonderful people, including you, Anthony. And then our relationship has blossomed since then. We've done business together and worked on things together and projects and whatnot. So that's kind of where it came from, that first mastermind group with all the guys.
Yeah. And I think we were both in kind of the same place. You had just left corporate America. I had just left corporate America, and neither of us really knew what our next step was going to be. We kind of both kind of quit cold turkey, and we were trying to figure it out. And that group was really formative for both of us. And I remember it was an emotional roller coaster. Anytime you get into a situation like that, where you kind of burn the ships, you're trying to find that next thing, and you're kind of walking on a tightrope. There were a lot of times that we talked each other off the ledge. I knew that when I was in those kind of deep, dark places, really doubting myself and doubting my situation, I knew that you were always right there on speed dial, and we can talk. And I know we both kind of served that purpose for each other, helped each other get through it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I don't claim to be an entrepreneur, but I think having an entrepreneurial spirit, something that's always been part of like who I am, who I was. Let me tell you the kind of what led me to the journey was going back to the roots of who I was as a kid, right? So as a kid, I was, I bought and sold stuff. My dad owned a business, and we always were working with things. And I would see something of value, I'd buy it and sell it to somebody else. I hustled candy in high school. We'd buy candy at the local a corner store before we got on our school bus, put it in the JanSport bag, and then me and my homeboy would sell it out at the end of the day and have enough for lunch money and whatnot. It was that was kind of the early times of kind of hustle for myself. And then you get a little intoxicated when you've got a pretty decent salary. And so I had started working for a company and was there for 18 years and worked all the way up to the C-suite. I was in the C-suite before I left. And you get intoxicated when the numbers are big, and you kind of forget. In that environment, it's hard. It was hard to be entrepreneurial because it's very bureaucratic, and I kind of forgot those roots. And so when they moved a different direction and kind of middle management and some of the senior folks were forced out, it forced me to do something different and to go back to the beginning. And that's what kind of started those juices again. And I tell you now, Anthony, if I had to go work for somebody else in an office, I would die. I would absolutely die. I couldn't breathe. I wouldn't be able to breathe. To sit in an office in a cubicle and kind of do things, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm grateful for the ability to to have a community and to have folks that are on that journey at different levels. I look back to Caleb. Like, Caleb was like, guys, you're going to be fine. I remember him saying that. And look at us now, Anthony.
Yeah.
Right? Look at us today with where we were. He was at the other end where he had the business, had done some software, had brick and mortar, and was looking to like check out and have more of a passive thing where he met us. And so you kind of look at it, that's big bro, right? Caleb was big brother for us, at least in my opinion. He was.
Yeah. It's so important to have mentors and to have people that are in that place where you want to get to,
right.
So that they can just kind of pull you up.
Right.
I remember him saying that as well. So how did you go about trying to find the next logical step for you, like when you left corporate America?
So for me, it was out of necessity, right? So when you're at the CFO level, the executive level, and especially back then, and we're talking, this is back in, this is going to be probably 13, 14 years ago. It's been a long time. The economy it was better than it is now, but it was not necessarily great. We'd just come off of the 2008-09 problem. So the economy had fallen apart and then had been coming back steadily. But there was still a lot of, employment was not great, right? And so you exit the workforce, you get it with a severance package. I'm like, okay, I got some runway. And so did a couple of interviews, going back into that same mode, and then really kind of just got like disgusted at it, right? And it was, for me, it was a friend of mine that kind of shook me by my collar and said, "What are you doing? Like, do your own thing, like you don't need to be chasing somebody else's dream. Just make your own, or live your own dream." And that resonated for me. It's my buddy Martin. Martin was kind of like, you need to be, you got to do your own thing. And so that was really the thing that kind of jolted me to not go and search back an office to be in. And that's led me through some nonprofit work. It led me through a couple of consultants groupings that I was in, some consulting areas where I was ad hoc. It's led to me to what I'm doing now with Procuris after leaving that last consultancy. But it also put me in the mindset of doing not just one thing and having, multiple streams of income to kind of combine. Anthony, back when you and I first met, the magic number was hit 10K, right? To hit 10K a month. Now that's, if I had to go back to 10K a month, it would be kind of like ridiculous, right? So it's like, when you're an hourly wage worker, like the magic number is to check out of the rat race, right? And typically is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 90 to 120,000 a year. And it's once you make 10 grand a week, it's really like ludicrous to make 10K a month. Well, once you make 40K a week, it's hard, like it's these levels to these things, right? So people that are making $1 million a year look back and say, that's only that's a couple grand a day, basically. And that's more than some people make in their paycheck for 2 weeks worth of work. And so once you start compartmentalizing, exchanging value for monetary versus changing your time for monetary, I'm in the mode now of trying to buy back my time. And so the value that I provide has a number attached to it, and that value is worth X. And how many of those can I do to have my daily life? and then what things can I do as an entrepreneur that allow me to have more income working for itself than me actually spending time doing the thing. And so that's kind of where the journey has taken me. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm still at the beginning, right? There's folks that are way further on that have 5, 6, 7 lines of passive income, and then one thing that they're doing day to day. And that's kind of where I'm trying to head to. I don't have that many yet.
Absolutely. I love that. And so one of the things that I try to teach people is this concept of proximate possibilities, where you take inventory of where you're at, and then you try to figure out what is the next logical step. So when you were in that mode, you had just quit your job, you're looking for that next thing. You kind of had that income goal in mind of where you felt you needed to get to. How did you decide on which direction to take based on where you were at the time? Was it intentional, or did it just kind of happen?
Well, so I think a survey of your skill sets really is what led me, right? So I spent my career in corporate finance and doing accounting and finance at the executive level. Made a whole lot of sense to do that. As a matter of fact, when you and I first met, I was looking more at marketing things, right? How do you do the marketing part? Because when I sat and looked at the inventory of the skills that I had, the thing that I was lacking was the ability to market. Don't have the problem to talk to people. Don't have the problem convincing people that I'm the guy they need to use. It was the part to get to being in front of people. And so I think you used the word pull away. I think my pull away was being mad at myself for allowing someone else to control my destiny. And that burning like ick, for lack of a better word. People call it icks these days, right? It's ick. That ick was a constant reminder of somebody else at any given time can say, go home. And I didn't want that anymore. And I wanted the freedom to make my own way, my own path, my own forge my own journey. And the only way you can do that is by really taking things into your own hands. And so then the next logical piece from that is, okay, well, what can I do, right? Am I going to, go buy socks and try to sell them to the street corner? Am I going to, buy refrigerators and repair them and sell them? What am I going to do? And so you take an inventory of your skill set and say, okay, here are the things that I'm really good at. And I think early on, Anthony, I really identified, and I don't know if this happened before we met or after we met during the time, but I really identified there are some things I'm really good at, and there's a whole lot of shit that I'm not good at. And that whole lot of stuff that I'm not good at, I don't focus on at all. I know I'm not good at it. And so if I know that I'm not great at detail, hire somebody to do the detail. I can have the big ideas and make sure you've got a cohort or a group of people. No different in nonprofit leadership, by the way, right? We coach this to executive directors. Fill your board with people that offset your skill set. If your board is heavily identical to you, that is a mismanaged board. So it's the same thing, right? So you take an inventory of yourself. I think I answered your question, but the pivot for me, I think the other word you used was pivot. The pivot for me was not wanting to go back to being, to channel 20 years into something for someone to tell me thanks, but no thanks, and go have a nice life. The fear of that is what kind of drove me to like, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah. And that's a great kind of segue into this next phase where you started to focus on, providing financial services or CFO services to companies, but then you looked at the things that you're interested in and the areas where you felt you want to have the most impact. And you're a man of faith. You're a member of a particular church, and you started doing some financials for that church, right? So, can you talk a little bit about that? You started to combine that with your finances, and then you started an e-commerce store. So how did all that get going?
So it's interesting. So the survey that I did about what do I have available, and then what's available to me. At the time, I was, a layperson in a congregation here in my town, and we were not operating from a place of clarity. And so I took the information that we had, and I created an environment that allowed us to have more clear data. Exactly what I did in my professional life, right? I kind of fell backwards into it, if you can take that analogy. And so I started keeping the books for this little small congregation, and I instituted an accounting system and put together some processes and controls, and how to double check to make sure that the person counting the money is not the person taking it to the bank, and the division of labor that's very necessary in small congregations, and then reporting that information back out to the folks. How I arrived there was out of necessity, right? But the marriage of it kind of happened serendipitously. And then in the process of that, let me talk about this one entrepreneurial thing that I did. So I was in a position at this congregation where we kept running into the person responsible for getting communion for us to have kept forgetting to buy it. And that person did it it happened like 2 or 3 times, and a light bulb went off. I was like, well, hold on a second. They're at the time, again, I'm in this foundation with Anthony and other folks, right? So that's all about building a business that's SaaS driven. I had also done some stuff with AppSumo, which is another one of those groups of people, and building a business, a software as a service that was an order system that allowed me to order on subscription to have communion delivered on a regular basis, so we didn't have to forget about it anymore. And so I built a website, created a process for that, and we started fulfilling our own orders. That church was our first customer. Handful of other customers over the course of some years, and then that work has kind of gone a little to the wayside because now you can buy it off of Amazon, right? People can just order it and have it shipped. This is kind of at the time when Amazon was just kind of getting, prolific. And so now you can just order it and have it shipped on Amazon. It's much easier. So that business didn't really develop. But in the process of that, I used to literally handwrite notes to every customer that I sent communion supplies to. And I would say, if you have anything that you need relating to services, worship, whatever, ask me first before you try to find it on your own. And that turned into a conversation with somebody wanting baptismal garments that they couldn't find online. And that led to a source of me finding some information from a supplier they're in Texas now. They've actually always been in Texas. I was thinking Kentucky. And I started selling baptismal garments. And so my online business has turned from communion supplies in general to really focusing on communion supplies kind of on the side, but mostly baptismal garments. I sell a lot of baptismal garments per year, considering again, niched into the church denomination, not denomination, but the church that I belong to, and the groups of those types of churches. When they buy baptismal garments, they probably buy them from me. Now there are other folks out there that have baptismal garments, but I am my manufacturer's largest single purchaser. The little company that I set up. And so it grew out of that. It kind of was born out of that necessity. And then also remembering things that my dad taught me when I was a kid, right? So a little handwritten note goes a long way. It's personal. And that personal nature, people get attached to it psychologically. And that's exactly what happened. And so I sell orders every other day. There's a little bing, 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 and forward that on to my good friend and who's been doing it for 50 years, has been selling baptismal garments for 50 years. Maybe one day I can buy that business from her because she's reaching her twilight years with her husband. But it's been a good business. It's been a good side business for sure. It does pretty good coin, if I can be honest.
Yeah. I love the progression here through all these things that you've done. I mean, you started in corporate, you left that, went off on your own doing finance, started doing financial work for the church, and then found that they had a need for communion supplies, then found a need that all these other churches that were ordering communion supplies had a need for baptismal garments.
Right.
And everything just kind of grew and blossomed from, from the preceding step. So
Right.
like when you left corporate America, did you have any idea that a few years later you would be selling baptismal garments online?
No, not at all. If you would have told me that I was going to sell church supplies online, I'd have been like, how? I would have had no idea how to do that. Now, the company that I run now does financial, so it makes a lot of sense. And again, it's that same thread of financial responsibility, stewardship, we call it in the church. That doesn't surprise me because it's where most of my money comes from. But that business itself is one of many things that I've got going on, right? So my consultancy is focused on finance, basically for what we refer to as mission-driven or community-based initiatives. So if it serves a community, if it has some component that deals with at-risk populations, that can mean anything, by the way, right? So we're working with housing authorities as a niche, for example. But that's one business. I have other interests in low-income housing. I think there's going to be a crisis especially in my area of the United States. We're already there with housing, and I want to be the kind of landlord that can take, invest in real estate in a way that allows me to have ownership of it for now, but will eventually give it back to those folks that had for home ownership. I think home ownership is going to be a problem in 15 to 20 years for a lot of people. And so I can take advantage of owning some assets today, but be able to gift those back to the community in the future. So that's something that's also part of what we're working on. Water and water insufficiency is something that I'm passionate about. Started buying ice machines to sell ice. And so that's something that me and some business partners put together a plan to own and operate ice vending machines that are on neighborhoods that need them. And so my passions have led me to develop, I guess, the acumen to be not afraid to go try something. And so I think that's really what if I had to try to say something, that's the part that I'm trying to say, is that try some things, man. Not everything's going to stick, but the effort of doing the thing, whatever the thing is, the effort of doing it is what produces kind of the fruit. And so for me, that fruit is going to be eventually enough assets that produce all the work that I've been working on for the last, the breadth of my career, right? So again, more of that progression that you talked about, Anthony.
Yeah. And so that kind of led you to where you are today, right? Like you went through this whole progression, and now you've got your consultancy, which is called Procuris Consulting, right? Can you talk a little bit about how you came into that? How did that come about? You had left another role, right? And
right. Okay. So in the course of me working with consulting with nonprofits and other agencies, I joined an organization that was a virtual consultancy, accounting consultancy, specifically as a CFO. And so through that relationship, I met another business partner, Bob, who was a controller. And he and I partnered together on, I don't know, dozens, probably, maybe less than dozens actually, but dozens of clients, and got to work really close with one another in how the need for the person who's controlling the information, which is what Bob does, making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and the things are done, compliant, marrying that with the executive C-suite to take the information and interpret it in a way that allows you to make good business decisions, and then being able to say what those business decisions could or should be based on whatever the mission is, right? So we were in this organization together. I left back in August. He left in January, and we decided to do our own thing together. And so take what we've learned from our careers. And Bob's a CPA, right? So he's been in his process for a very long time. Has also dipped in and out. Was in software for a while and did some sales. He and I both did sales at this other agency, and basically started the company with the idea of focusing directly on what he and I both do in our personal life. And so take what we have as a career, right, as a CFO or a controller, and marry that with what we do, what I do for my local congregation. So I provide the exact services that we provide as a company to my congregation. I'm their CFO. They can't afford me, by the way. Wink, 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 wink. They can't afford me. But I provide that for them. And we set up a system. I've been there now 12 years, I think. We set up an accounting system. We keep track of our budget, to actuals. We keep track of all the things financially. I also introduce all of the NBA level business owner kind of acumen to a congregation that otherwise would have, whatever skill sets that exist inside the congregation. And so I bring that kind of to the forefront. And that's what our company does. We bring our experience and our professional expertise and then gift that to whatever process we're working on, whatever business we're working on.
Yeah, I love that. And you guys are so purpose driven, and you've done such a great job of taking your skill set and kind of like a life purpose that you're pursuing and combining them and doing it in a way that your work life is now like a fulfillment of that.
Right. If you could think of, Anthony, every scandal that you've ever heard of that's related to church or some faith-based whatever, the scandal is normally one of two things. It's either some kind of sexual impropriety, or it's about money. And when it's about money, it really falls into two buckets. Bucket A is someone is doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they know they shouldn't be doing it, they got caught. Or what we focus on, which is they want to do it the right way, they just don't know how. Or they don't know that there's a better way to do it. And so what I found in the small congregations that I've been in is that when I got there, it's basically, the folks are treating the checkbook like they would their personal checkbook. And they're, even though congregations are not businesses, they kind of operate in the same way a business should, right? For sustainability, specifically nonprofit, right? Where they are responsible to their congregational members for the fiduciary of the funds that they've raised. And when they don't use those correctly, there's a problem. And that delta, the problem exists when expectation doesn't meet reality. And so how does someone who wants to do good and doesn't know how to do bookkeeping, for example, or wants to do good but doesn't deploy the resources of their financial assets the right way for the long term of business procurement, it ends up causing heartburn with the congregation. And then they start asking questions. Well, where's the money being spent? Oh, we don't have, our records up to date, so I can't show you. Well, that moves down the what's the word? The credibility of what they're working on. And so one of the things that Bob and I were really like we were purposeful about this is we know that business owners know to do this. We know that church guys probably don't know better, especially the ones that are in the sweet spot where we're at. Those folks that are really big, they probably got it already handled because they're big enough to know better. The guys that are really small and the medium, those are the ones that are winging it, and that's where that's where we come in, to be able to take that information, put it in a way that makes it easy to distribute to people that need to see it, especially the congregation, to see we took in this amount of money, we spent it on these things, right? And then also open the transparency, right? Oh, you spent $400 on, a thing that you shouldn't have spent money on. It leads to the credibility of, and probably something that is a problem in our country in general, is accountability, right? So it by the byproduct of it is accountability. And so so we've really focused a lot on trying to take what we've done in our professional lives and really double down on the fact that the church and faith organizations in general need that the most. And so that's kind of who we've been focusing on first.
I love that. And there's so much gold in all of your wisdom that's why I love talking to you. We have, just so people watching know, we still to this day have kind of a mastermind group that Mike and I are in, and we talk every week, and Mike just drops a bunch of truth bombs all the time, and he's full of wisdom. So I always appreciate hearing about it. And we always say we should just record these things, and now we are. So there we go. We've got them recorded. So I love the story. I love your progression. It's just, to me, this is just a huge success story. And what advice would you give to people who are maybe unhappy with their position right now that they're in their life or in their career? They know they need to change. They know they want to do something else. They just don't know what that something is. What advice do you have for them?
I think the first and foremost, something that I've said, Anthony, to you many times, is you just got to do it, right? You just got to step out. And things can be scary, especially the fear of the unknown, fear of failing. I've been on this kick the last couple of weeks talking about if you knew that success was 20 no's away, how fast would you burn through those no's to get to that yes, to whatever the success, fill in the blank with whatever it is. The thing that stops most people is the fear of failure. If you did not have a fear of failure, you would literally be unstoppable. And failure comes in many ways, right? Failure in my own self, the fact that I might not think that I have imposter syndrome because I can't do the thing. Fear that my family might be let down if I can't support them the way I want to. Fear in the actual things that I'm doing day to day, that people might see those and go, well, why is he doing that? Or, oh my goodness, I can't believe he's doing that. Once you get rid of that fear stuff, things open up. And it takes one win. And I say this with my whole chest. It takes one win. The first time you make $1 from someone that you don't know online, it is absolutely intoxicating to know that I produced a thing, or I bought and sold a thing, or I have a service thing, and it's somebody I don't know, not my friends, not my uncle, not my cousin, not the neighbor, someone who was out there in the world who doesn't know you, looks at it and says, I think I need that. And they open up their wallet and give you something. And then you just exchange value for money. Second level game change, because then everything from that moment forward is up. People will look at the Hermosis of the world or the Cardones of the world and say, these guys are full of it. Da, da, da. At some point, they were in the same position where they didn't know if what they were going to do was going to produce something. Now, for some of those guys, you might have to go. Tony Robbins, you got to go back to when he was a toddler, right? Because that guy's been successful his whole life. But it's all mindset. It's all here. It's all, I know in my spirit that what I'm trying to do, and I know, let me finish my point. I know in my spirit that what I'm trying to do is the right thing. I can feel it. I might not know exactly what it is that I need to do, but I know that I got to do something. There are some people that are okay clocking in, putting in 8 hours, taking a 45-minute lunch, getting marginal pay, getting routine evaluations, and taking the 2.5% cost of living increase every year, and getting really upset that they didn't get the bonus that they expected, and they're okay with that because they don't want to make different decisions. But I'll say this, that I say to my niece and nephew sometimes: indecision is decision. You're deciding to stay the same, and especially for my one nephew, if you wanted to do better, you would do better. And if you are unable to do better because of fill in the blank thing, whatever it is, then go find help. Outside of that, you are making the decision to stay where you're at. And, you got the Gary V's of the world and all these guys that talk way more eloquently than I do. But ultimately, they're all saying the same thing. Just take a step forward in whatever that direction is. That's all you need to do. And I guarantee you, when you have that first W, it'll fill you with joy. It'll vibrate your spirit. And then it's just, at that point, it's just, how do you scale? How do you scale that, whatever that turns out to be for you? Some people want to work 40 hours a week. Some people want to work 80.
Yeah.
When I first left corporate America, I was working 60 hours a week. I traded that in for working 100 hours a week. And as I've gotten a little further along, I'm trying to go the opposite. I'm saying, okay, I've done the hard work. Now let me find things that buy my time back. So instead of me trying to figure out how to be a marketer, I'm going to go hire a marketer that can do the things that I need to do. Or instead of me fill in the blank from Mike Floyd, instead of me doing my own bookkeeping, let me hire someone to do the bookkeeping. Let me focus on what's necessary, and all this other stuff, I'll outsource it to somebody else. Yeah. Housekeeping, right? Laundry, the yard work. I don't do none of that stuff anymore. You can't, because if you enjoy it, keep it. If you don't enjoy it, outsource it all.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is that when you're trying to figure out your direction and trying to get that motivation, it's about going for those wins, getting those quick wins, maybe taking the small steps that help you to start to gain some momentum, right. And then you could just kind of build from there. Right.
Right.
Now, where do you get your motivation from now? Like, what is your driving force right now with the things that you're doing with Procuris and all the other things that you're doing? Like, what is kind of your why and your purpose right now?
So my why, I think, is threefold. I'm not sure if you're going to keep this in here or not. Feel free to if you want to. I have been fortunate enough to face death twice. I had colon cancer when I was 30, and I had aortic valve replacement, open heart surgery when I was 45. Those two events alone in one person's life are enough to make them do something different. And for me, I've been fortunate enough to have both. And so there's a sense of urgency for me to be able to enjoy life, and to enjoy life at a level that allows me to kind of do what I want to do, right? Come and go as I please, and not be chained to a desk or chained to somebody else's desk for that matter. The first motivation for me is my belief in God. God has sustained me through two very concerning moments in my life. That's number one. Number two is my family, my wife. She's the best part of every decision I've ever made. For lack of a better, not to be sappy or whatever, but I leveled up when I married her, and not just because she's beautiful, et cetera, and all the things. It's the type of person and the type of people she comes from, her family and the folks that are part of her world have become people of my world. But wanting to put her in a position where she doesn't have to work so hard, even though she's a hard worker, being free from the mechanics of society, if you will. So I've been a big push for that. My third motivation is I'm lazy. I mean, I'm not lazy, but I'm lazy.
Yeah. Right.
I'm actually a really hard worker, but I don't want to be. I'm tired. I want to take all these things that I've learned and the skill sets that I have, and I want to give them to the world so the world can have them. And then I want to be able to sit back and let it just kind of, is the word matriculate? I wanted to graduate. Matriculate, right? That's a good, sure. That's a MBA word, I guess. Yeah. I wanted to graduate to whatever it is and let that benefit everybody that's in my circle of influence. And so that's really what it is. Those three: God, my wife, and I'm ready to give it back. Did you and I ever talk about Carnegie's 3 steps? So
probably, but go ahead.
Andrew Carnegie has the 3 steps, right? So you spend the first third of your life learning as much as you can, the next third of your life earning as much as you can, the last third giving it all away. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in that earn as much as I can so that when I at the next phase, I can give it back to society, whether that's monetary or it's with energy, kind of giving it all back. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And there's such a selfless aspect to everything you just said. You know, all of your motivation right now and your sense of purpose is coming from things outside of yourself, where you are looking to help your wife, give back to society, help your, have your skills be there for the benefit of everyone around you and beyond. So I love that. That's a fantastic way to look at things and a great source of motivation and purpose. Well, this has been great, Mike. If people want to find out more about you or about Procuris, how can they find you?
So I'm on socials, Mike C. Floyd or Mike C. Floyd CFO. A couple of different ones are like that. Our website is procurisconsulting.com, PROCURIS consulting.com. Myself, you normally see Bob online because I'm really not an online guy. But I will respond if you tag me. Bob does all of our videos. So if you see videos of ours, you're going to see Bob's beautiful mug. But yeah, find us. If you find me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, I'm around. Find us and we'll help you out. We have a process that we go through that's called the Financial Intelligence Framework, which is 4 pillars, which goes through an evaluation of kind of where you're at, a protocol to establish things the right way, real-time tracking, and then the C-suite level intelligence part. Bob and I have been doing those same steps for probably decades. Just didn't give it a name. So yeah, come on over. We'll help you out.
Yeah, another example of you taking things that were within your realm and just taking them to the next logical step. So it's been great talking to you, Mike.
Yes, brother.
Always a good time. Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes.
Hey, if you liked this video, click on the next video right here beside me to hear another great story of someone who moved away from the corporate world and took a progression of next logical steps to end up somewhere extraordinary. I'll see you over there.